What's going on, everybody? VitalSyntax here, and this is the second video in a series where I'm going over all the classes in Medal of Honor Warfighter's multiplayer component. If you guys haven't seen the other classes, make sure to go to my channel and check those out if you guys are interested. So this episode, we're going over the Assaulter class, and we're going to talk about the ability it has, sidearms, score chains, what type of weapons it can use, what I recommend for my personal favorite setup, and also talk about what type of weapons and setups are best for each situation in regards to this class. So let's first talk about the ability. So each class has their own ability. Last episode we talked about the sniper, who has the bipod and auto spotting. For the assaulter, he has an underslung grenade launcher, or if you don't have it set up properly on your gun to be underslung, you can actually have it as a secondary weapon that pulls out whenever you press C on the keyboard for the PC, which is the unique ability type of button. And it'll pull out a thumper if you don't have it set up to be an underslung grenade launcher. So you do get 2 grenades. Those can only be replenished either by a fire team replenish or when you die and respawn. You can't get those just from your fire team buddy running up to you and holding E to replenish your ammo. It actually has to be the score chain replenish to replenish that. And those don't actually count as your throwable explosives, because you still also have your normal frag grenades that you can throw with G. And those are also quite good. But the underslung grenade launcher, or if you don't have it set up properly, the thumper grenade launcher, is actually very powerful. It does quite a bit more damage than what we've seen in Battlefield 3. It has a bigger blast radius, and just overall, it's a pretty powerful thing. It's not overpowered. It doesn't get too frustrating, although I have died a couple times where it was kind of lame. But overall, I think it balances pretty well. You know, you can't just replenish, get tons and tons of ammo for it. You only have 2, so... Anyway, let's move on to the next thing, which is the sidearm. This guy has the Sig Sauer P226, which is a semi-automatic pistol. I believe it has a 16-round magazine. It's going to be better at medium and long-range engagements compared to something like the shotgun for the point man or the G18 for the sniper. It's not necessarily the best close range, but it's more of a middle range gun. It does quite a bit of damage, and I believe it kills in either 4 or 5 shots and has a pretty high fire rate. Alright, let's move on to the score chains. So the first score chain, there's 4 different tiers. So the first tier is either a 60mm mortar for offensive or a smokescreen for defensive. The next tier is either a guided missile or the fire team replenish. And the guided missile is just like the switchblade that we talked about last episode with the sniper class. So you can basically deploy that, and you get to control the missile all the way until it hits the ground. And it has, I believe, a bigger blast radius than the switchblade. You know, pretty easy to get double and triple kills, especially in the objective game modes where people are kind of collected in one area. Probably a little bit harder in something like Team Deathmatch, where it's a little more spread out. So for the third tier, you have the cluster bomb, or the RQ-7 Shadow. We've talked about the RQ-7 Shadow in the last episode. It's just a more advanced UAV, and the cluster bomb is just a bigger mortar. It has a bigger blast radius. It's a lot easier to kill in a larger area. And of course, the last tier, just like all the other classes, is the Apache Pilot. And once again, I hope that they add the ability to spawn in as the gunner and have your fire team buddy as the pilot, although this might have issues if you don't have a fire team buddy, which somebody brought up in the last episode. Alright, so let's move on to the weapons that you can use. There's essentially 4 weapons. Just like with the sniper class, there's essentially 4 weapons, but there's lots of different modifications of those weapons, but ultimately there's really 4. So the first one, and these aren't in any particular order, but the first one I'm talking about is the M416. This is a Heckler & Koch M4 modification, and it's fully automatic. I believe it also probably has single fire. I don't know about 3-round burst. I haven't checked. But it's a good medium range gun, a good close range gun. Has a 30-round magazine, kind of standard. And the next one is the M4V1. It's very similar to the M416. I personally like a little bit more, but it's also a very standard gun. Good at medium and closer ranges, fully automatic, 30-round magazine. Now let's move on to the G3, which essentially has 4 different modifications in this game. It's the G3 KA4, the AG3, the AK4, and the G3. They're all basically the same gun with different modifications to the base. And this thing has a 20-round magazine, seems to do a lot more damage, but also have a lot more recoil. And I actually prefer to use this one as well as the next gun, which I'll talk about, in single fire mode instead of the fully automatic, unless you're at close range, because it has so much recoil, it's really hard to control. And this thing's definitely excels at close range, because at close range you don't really have to worry about recoil too much, and it just kills really quickly. And it also excels at long range if you do tap firing with the single fire mode. It really doesn't do the best job at medium range though. You're probably gonna get outshot by somebody else that's using, like the M416 or the M4V1, just because it has a lot of recoil. It's very hard to control, and it's very hard to get all those bullets on target, especially if you're going full auto. And then the last weapon, which also has a couple different modifications, is the EBR, which is essentially an M21 or an M14 with modifications. And this is also a 20-round magazine weapon. It's very similar to the G3. Once again, excels at close range because it has a really high damage output. But it's not very good at medium range because a lot of recoil. And at long range, I would probably use it in single fire, and it's pretty good at that range as well. Alright, so let's move on to my personal favorite setup, what type of weapon I use, and also what type of modifications and attachments I like to use on the weapon. So my personal favorite one is the M4V1. And I like to use, as far as optics goes, I like to use the Spectre DR, which has 2 different magnification levels, allowing you to zoom in at a little bit longer ranges. You can switch to single fire mode and probably, take longer shots. For the barrel, I like to use the combination of the heavy barrel as well as the 44mm underslung grenade launcher. That way you're a little bit better at long range. You have a higher effective range. It's a little bit slower, a little bit less agile. And you also have the underslung grenade launcher, which seems to switch a little bit faster than having the thumper. So I like to have it underslung. For the muzzle, either use a compensator or a muzzle brake, basically the same thing. Don't really have too much of an effect on your weapon. I would probably stay away from the silencers. So far, my experience with silencers is pretty bad. They do keep you off the radar when you fire. They're still pretty loud, so you can still hear people when they're firing it. But most importantly, they add a lot of inaccuracy to your weapon. And it makes it very, very hard to use at medium or long range situations. If it's a close quarters map that has lots of CQB, then it might be a good choice, especially if you need to stay off the radar, maybe in something like home run where your life is really, really important and you want to basically stay silent and maybe flank the enemy or something like that. That might be usable, but almost all the guns, I hate the silencer. So anyway, let's move on to the receiver. I like to use the Magpul PRS stock, which once again increases your effective range a tad bit, and it's going to decrease your agility a little bit. For the magazine, it doesn't really matter. I like to use the general default PMag, and then for the paint job, once again, doesn't really matter. I prefer, on this gun at least, the black spray once again, which is just so sexy, and the gray digital, which I also really like on a lot of the other guns, which is under the urban section. Alright, so let's talk about what setup is probably best for longer ranges and which ones are better for medium and closer ranges. So like I said when I was going over the weapons, the best long range weapons in this class are probably the G3 or the EBR. Set it to single fire mode, get a nice magnification scope, and it's almost like a semi-automatic sniper rifle with a 20-round magazine. Just like the Laura OBR, which actually the sniper uses, has 20-round magazine, basically the same damage. Best for close range, I'd probably argue the G3 and EBR once again, although it's pretty close tie. They do have a higher damage output, but they have a slower fire rate than something like the M416 or the M4V1s. I don't really know exactly what the time to kill is. I would personally probably rather have the M416 or the M4V1 just because you can spray a little bit more. You don't have to hit all your bullets just because you have a much higher fire rate. And obviously at medium ranges, that G3 and EBR I think kind of are something you should stay away from. The M416 and the M4V1 are definitely probably the best all-around type of weapons, and medium ranges, just dead in the middle. And then also, I already talked about the explosives. You've got the underslung grenade launcher as well as the frag grenade. Frag grenades in this game are pretty powerful. Hopefully they tweak them a little bit. And he just has the normal frag grenades, which I personally like. I'd rather have those over the over the flashbangs like the Point Man, or over like the proximity mines. Although proximity mines are really nice for the sniper because you can kind of throw them down and have them watch your back, kind of like a claymore. So anyway, that is my review of the Assaulter class. One of my favorite classes, probably my second favorite class to the Sniper class in Medal of Honor Warfighter. Make sure to give me a like or a favorite if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more Medal of Honor Warfighter. And make sure to check out the other episodes if you guys are interested in learning about all the classes this game has to offer. I'll see you guys later.